the record seems pretty clear. They're excited to watch Caitlin because she's great.
And that's what we've seen in the NBA.
Sheila Johnson, co-owner of the Washington Mystics, didn't hold back when she took aim at Caitlin Clark's recent Time magazine cover. The spotlight was on Clark after being named Athlete of the Year, but Johnson wasn't thrilled about it. She made it clear that the cover should have honored the entire WNBA, not just one player.
The WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have. Just keep singling out one player, it creates hard feelings.
For Johnson, this wasn't about undermining Clark's talent, but about recognizing the collective strength of the league, something that's been overshadowed by all the attention on Clark. But the controversy didn't end there.
But we just have to understand that when a transformational figure enters the fray, you got to pause and then isolate and compartmentalize and give them the love that they're due. And in this case, it belongs to Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark, in her acceptance of the honor, made an eyebrow-raising statement about her privilege as a white athlete. She expressed regret that her recognition was taking attention away from black players in the WNBA, a statement that didn't sit well with everyone. While some praised her for acknowledging racial dynamics, others saw it as a misstep that only fueled the already tense racial divide within the league. Was Clark's attempt to be self-aware and humble a strategic move to silence her critics, or did it just make things worse?
But as a white person, there is privilege. And it just makes me sad that she reacted the way that she did, because Caitlin Clark is so talented.
This moment highlights the racial tensions that have been bubbling in the WNBA for some time. While the league has a diverse roster, there's been an undercurrent of frustration, especially from players who feel that black athletes are not getting the recognition they deserve. Clark's comments about racial privilege may have been an attempt to address these issues, but instead, they've opened a Pandora's box of criticism. The league's internal struggles are now spilling out into the public, with players like Angel Reese and Aja Wilson making it clear they're not exactly fans of Clark's newfound spotlight. At the heart of the issue is Clark's own actions. She's caught in a tough spot. While she enjoys the accolades, the attention, and the spotlight, she's also trying to navigate the complex terrain of race and privilege. Her attempt to appease both sides, acknowledging her success, while also calling attention to the struggles of black players, hasn't won her any favor with either group. The result? A divided WNBA, where the conversation about race, privilege, and recognition is far from over.
And, you know, I really think it's important that you pay attention to the black women. I mean, she just cannot get down low enough for them to really just kick her in the face.
Sheila Johnson's criticism of Caitlin Clark's Time magazine cover wasn't just a passing comment, it was a sharp rebuke aimed at the entire narrative surrounding Clark's rise. Johnson, a co-owner of the Washington Mystics, made it clear that she felt the focus on one player, especially a white player, undermined the collective achievement of the WNBA. While Clark's individual talent is undeniable, Johnson argued that the attention should have been shared with the entire league, not just one standout. The WNBA, after all, is home to countless incredible athletes, many of whom have been overlooked in favor of the media's latest darling. Johnson's words reflect a growing frustration within the league, where some players feel their hard work and talent are being overshadowed by the media's obsession with one athlete. For Johnson, this isn't just about a magazine cover, it's about the larger issue of how the media portrays the WNBA and the athletes within it. She believes that the league's success should be celebrated as a whole, not just through the lens of one player's success story. This focus on individual accolades, especially when it's tied to race, creates division and fosters resentment. The WNBA's history has been built on the backs of black athletes, and Johnson feels it's time for the league to shift its narrative. By highlighting one white athlete over the entire league, the media risks perpetuating the very racial dynamics that have long been a challenge in sports.
Caitlin Clark, what she's doing doesn't minimize what they've done, but we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about something else. Oh, what about the women that laid the foundation? What about this? What about it? That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is box office. She's doing this.
Women should just shut up and dribble in the WNBA. The more they talk, the dumber they are. We get dumber when they speak. We get dumber when their media speak.
But Clark's acknowledgement of her privilege in the face of this attention added another layer to the controversy. In her statement, Clark expressed regret that her recognition was overshadowing the accomplishments of black players in the WNBA. While some may have seen this as a moment of humility, others interpreted it as a misguided attempt to appease critics. Clark's decision to address her race and privilege wasn't just about self-awareness. It was an attempt to navigate the complex and often uncomfortable conversation about race in sports. But in doing so, she may have inadvertently opened the door for more criticism, especially from those who felt her comments were an oversimplification of the issues at hand. Clark's statement about race and privilege also highlighted the underlying racial tensions that have been simmering in the WNBA for years. The league has long been a space where black athletes have dominated, yet the recognition and media coverage often don't reflect that reality. In a league where black women have been the stars, Clark's comments about feeling guilty for receiving the spotlight only added fuel to the fire. Some saw it as a genuine acknowledgement of the disparities in the league, while others felt it was a tone-deaf response to a much larger issue. The fact that Clark felt compelled to make this statement underscores the pressure athletes face when they find themselves at the center of a conversation about race.
Caitlin Clark is box office. She is a star.
Watch her play. She plays at a high level, highly skilled. She's the best passer in America, and she's the best shooter in America.
At the heart of this debate is the question of whether Clark's actions were a strategic move to gain favor with her critics or simply a misstep in an already delicate situation. The reality is that by acknowledging her privilege, Clark may have alienated both sides of the conversation. She risked upsetting her supporters, who saw her as a beacon of talent and success, while also drawing ire from those who felt her comments were a shallow attempt to address a much deeper issue. The WNBA, with its complex racial dynamics, isn't an easy place to navigate, and Clark's attempt to balance the scales may have only made the situation more complicated. As Sheila Johnson's criticism of Caitlin Clark's spotlight continues to reverberate through the WNBA, it's clear that the issue is more than just about one magazine cover. It's about how race and privilege intersect in a league that has long been dominated by black athletes. While Clark's talent is undeniable, her rise to the front page of Time magazine has ignited a deeper conversation about the media's role in shaping narratives around race and success in sports. The glaring question becomes, why is Clark, a white athlete, receiving this level of attention when the league's black stars have consistently been overlooked?
Caitlin Clark is becoming the best player in the entire WNBA, not because she's white, because she's that good. She's having Larry Bird impact.
The WNBA tried to capitalize on her popularity and crammed a lot of games in over a short amount of time, playing against the best teams in the WNBA.
This imbalance has caused growing frustration among players who feel that their contributions are minimized in favor of a narrative that centers on one individual. The WNBA has produced some of the most talented and influential athletes in the world, yet their stories often go untold or are pushed to the margins. This frustration isn't just about recognition, it's about respect for the league as a whole. By placing Clark at the center of the media's gaze, it risks sidelining the achievements of athletes like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Angel Reese, whose talents have been essential in shaping the league's success. These athletes have worked tirelessly to elevate the WNBA, yet the spotlight often seems to shift away from them, leaving them to fight for the same recognition that Clark seems to receive effortlessly. In response to this growing tension, Clark's acknowledgement of her privilege was seen by some as a step in the right direction, but it wasn't without its own set of complications. Her comments, while well-intentioned, were perceived by many as an oversimplification of the complex racial dynamics at play in the WNBA. By acknowledging her privilege, Clark may have inadvertently reduced the conversation to a matter of personal guilt rather than addressing the systemic issues that continue to affect the league. The challenge here isn't just about one athlete's recognition, it's about a broader conversation on how race and media narratives shape the way athletes are perceived. Clark's attempt to navigate this conversation may have come off as an easy way out, avoiding the deeper, more uncomfortable truths that lie beneath the surface. The racial tensions within the WNBA are not new, but they have become more pronounced as the league has gained more visibility. The rise of social media and the increasing prominence of players like Clark have brought these issues to the forefront, forcing the league to confront uncomfortable truths about how race, media, and marketing intersect. While Clark may have been well-meaning in her attempt to address her privilege, it's clear that her words didn't land as intended. The conversation surrounding race in the WNBA is complex, and reducing reducing it to a simple acknowledgement of privilege does little to address the real challenges faced by black athletes in the league. Moreover, Clark's attempt to balance the conversation may have come at a cost. By making this statement, she not only alienated some of her supporters, but also drew the ire of those who felt that she was oversimplifying a complex issue. The reality is that race and privilege are not issues that can be solved with a single comment or acknowledgement. They require a deeper, more sustained effort to create meaningful change within the league. Clark's comments, while well-meaning, risked reducing the conversation to a matter of personal responsibility, rather than addressing the systemic inequalities that have long plagued the WNBA. This shift in focus from the larger issue to Clark's personal reflections may have left some feeling frustrated and disappointed, as it seemed to deflect attention from the real work that needs to be done. The question now is whether this conversation will lead to real change within the WNBA, or if it will remain a surface-level debate about individual actions and personal privilege. While Clark's acknowledgement of her position may have been a step in the right direction, it's clear that the conversation needs to go much deeper. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and how it addresses these racial dynamics will determine not only the future of the league, but also the legacy of the athletes who have helped shape it. If the league is to move forward, it must confront the uncomfortable truths about race, privilege, and media representation, and work toward creating a more equitable space for all athletes, regardless of their background. As the conversation around Caitlin Clark's media coverage continues to evolve, the tension surrounding her actions and the reactions from other players in the WNBA have become a microcosm of the broader racial dynamics within the league. The reality is that Clark's rise to fame has illuminated the disparity between how white athletes and black athletes are treated in the sports world. While Clark's undeniable talent has earned her recognition, it's the way the media has elevated her above her peers that's causing such a stir. The focus on her achievements, particularly her front page appearance, has left many questioning why similar recognition has not been afforded to the black players who have been the backbone of the WNBA for years. This is where the racial tensions within the league take center stage. The WNBA has long been a space where black athletes, particularly women, have fought to be seen and heard. From their on-court performances to their activism off the court, these athletes have consistently used their platforms to bring attention to issues of racial injustice, gender inequality, and economic disparity. Yet despite their efforts, the media and mainstream sports culture have often ignored their contributions. Clark's rise to fame is not just about her skill, it's about the glaring contrast in how the media has chosen to highlight her story while sidelining the stories of black athletes who have equally contributed to the league's success. This isn't just a matter of one player's success, it's a reflection of the systemic issues that have long plagued the sports world. In the wake of Sheila Johnson's criticism, the narrative around Clark's media presence has shifted. While some may argue that Clark's success is simply a result of her hard work and talent, others see it as an unfortunate reflection of the way race continues to shape media narratives. Johnson's remarks weren't just about one magazine cover. They were about the larger issue of how black athletes in the WNBA have been overlooked, despite their significant impact on the league's growth and visibility. The frustration is palpable, as players like Aja Wilson and Breanna Stewart have often found themselves relegated to the background, their stories overshadowed by the media's preference for narratives that align with mainstream, often white-dominated sports culture. What makes this situation even more complicated is the fact that Clark's acknowledgement of her privilege, while well-meaning, has done little to quell the growing resentment among her peers. In many ways, her comments only serve to highlight the deep divide that exists between her experience and that of black athletes in the league. The conversation around privilege is a complex one, and it's not enough to simply acknowledge it without understanding the larger context in which it exists. For many black athletes in the WNBA, Clark's recognition feels like a reminder of the systemic barriers they continue to face, even as they dominate the sport. It's a harsh reality that no amount of media coverage or personal acknowledgement can change overnight. At the heart of this controversy is the question of whether the WNBA will address these racial disparities head-on or continue to perpetuate a narrative that centers on one athlete's rise to fame while sidelining the contributions of others. The league has the potential to be a leader in advocating for diversity and inclusion in sports, but it must first confront the uncomfortable truths about race, privilege, and media representation. The future of the WNBA and the athletes who call it home depends on whether these issues are addressed in a meaningful way. If the league is to truly represent the diverse talent that fuels its success, it must create a space where all athletes, regardless of their race or background, are given the recognition they deserve. Until that happens, the tension between players like Caitlin Clark and her black counterparts will only continue to grow. As the WNBA continues to grapple with these racial tensions, the spotlight on Caitlin Clark has inadvertently sparked a larger conversation about the value of black athletes in the league. This isn't just about one magazine cover or one player's success. It's about the systemic issues that affect every player, especially those who have been historically marginalized. The frustration voiced by figures like Sheila Johnson is not simply about personal grievances. It's about the broader, ongoing struggle for equality in the sports world. The WNBA, with its rich history of activism and advocacy, has the power to challenge these disparities, but only if it is willing to confront uncomfortable truths and make tangible changes that reflect the league's commitment to fairness and representation. Moreover, the focus on Caitlin Clark's rise, while undeniable in its merit, risks overshadowing the immense contributions of black athletes who have carried the WNBA for years. Players like Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and others have not only helped elevate the league's profile, but have also been at the forefront of social justice movements, using their platforms to fight for racial and gender equality. Their voices are just as important as Clark's, if not more so, because they represent the ongoing struggle for recognition and respect in a world that often overlooks their achievements. If the WNBA is truly committed to diversity and inclusion, it must ensure that all players, regardless of their race, are given the opportunity to shine equally, without the overshadowing influence of race and privilege. Until this balance is achieved, the racial tensions that have been brought to the surface will continue to linger, and the league will miss an opportunity to create a more equitable and inclusive future for all of its athletes. As the debate around Caitlin Clark and her role in the WNBA continues to unfold, one thing becomes clear: the conversation is far from over. The tension between privilege, race, and recognition within the league highlights the complex dynamics at play. Whether or not Clark's actions were well-intentioned, they have opened the door for deeper discussions about how the WNBA should navigate these issues moving forward. The question remains: can the league evolve to truly reflect the diversity of its athletes, or will it continue to cater to narratives that may not serve the greater good of the sport? It's crucial for the WNBA to take this moment of heightened attention and use it as an opportunity for growth. Sheila Johnson's criticism, while harsh, could be a catalyst for the change that the league desperately needs. Acknowledging the contributions of black players and ensuring that their voices are heard is not just a matter of fairness, it's essential for the future of the league. By addressing these racial tensions head-on, the WNBA can create a more inclusive environment that celebrates all its players, regardless of background. Caitlin Clark, despite the backlash, remains a talented and influential figure in the world of basketball. Her story is an inspiration to many, but it also serves as a reminder of the challenges that come with being in the spotlight, especially when race and privilege are involved. While she may not have fully grasped the complexities of the situation, her actions have sparked a conversation that the WNBA cannot afford to ignore. The league's response to these issues will define its legacy for years to come. The WNBA's ability to address these tensions and ensure that all players are treated equally will determine the direction of the league. If it can move beyond the individual narratives and focus on creating a more inclusive, equitable environment for all athletes, the WNBA will not only survive, but thrive. Until then, the conversation around race, privilege, and recognition will continue to shape the future of women's basketball.